Charlie was the name of a chimpanzee in the zoo, said Daddy, and he was ill. The keeper went to Charlie with a medicine bottle, carrying a glass and a spoon, too. I am sorry, Charlie, said the keeper, and from the look Charlie gave him he knew he understood. Good chimpanzee, said the keeper. You fine, patient animal. You teach us all a lesson, all of us, for none of us take medicine well, neither children nor even grown-ups. The chimpanzee swallowed the medicine. He tried very hard not to make a face as he did so, but he took it all, every drop, and then he tried to lie quite still. For it was such horrid-tasting medicine. The keeper still stood by Charlie with the empty glass and bottle in his hand. Then he put them down and took Charlie's head and stroked it again and again. Charlie nudged up against the keeper. You will make me well, keeper, he seemed to say. It is not your fault you had to give me the horrid medicine. Dear keeper, you know that by tomorrow I will be feeling like my old self again. For monkeys and chimpanzees are the most patient creatures when they are sick. A toad, said Daddy, was once sent all the way in a little box from one side of this continent to the other to be the pet of a little sick boy named Paul. He was a horned toad, and he was the kind of a toad that needs little else beside air to live on. Now, the toad seemed to know he must behave on the journey and he was carried in a little box with air holes punched through it. Of course he needed the air more than anything, and wasn't he happy when at last he arrived, and could have all the air he wanted. And when Paul saw him he knew from the toad's honest, ugly face he would be loyal and good, and a real pet. I must thread my needle before I begin my work, said a little girl as she sat under a big pine tree, with another little girl. What's that I hear? Asked one of the pine needles. She speaks about threading her needle? Am I her needle, or are you her needle, or who in the world is her needle? And what is thread? The poor needles were very nervous. And the other little girl spoke next. I like to knit better than I do to sew because then I can use 4 needles. Oh dear, said the pine needles. There's a child who needs 4 needles. Do you suppose she threads us too? They watched for a long time, trying to move away from the children so they would not be used. They whispered to the pine tree saying, blow about and move us away, sway, swing, swing and sway. For we've just this minute heard it said, that into needles they will put thread. And the pine tree whispered to the breeze, blow, blow, make me sway, so I can move the needles away. Please, Mr. Wind, would you mind doing this act so very kind? So the wind blew the pine tree and the pine tree's branches swayed and blew about the little pine needles. But no sooner had all this happened than they saw that the children had other things called needles. They hadn't wanted pine needles at all. As I don't think you will be able to guess right away and as I want to tell you what really happened, I will tell you the place Blackie the cat chose for his nap one Sunday. It was in the church organ. Well, he had a fine sleep, and he was still asleep when the organist came in and began to play. Then poor Blackie woke up with a start. At first he didn't know whether he was having a nightmare or a bad dream, or what was happening. He moved to one side and the organ gave a curious rumble and a very funny sound and the organist looked as if he didn't know what the trouble could be. And the people stopped singing and then tried to go on singing without any music. The organist tried to play again and this awfully queer rumble and burr and buzz was heard once more. So the people went on finishing their singing without any organ. Of course Blackie tried to move when he felt the pedals moving and he jumped over the inside stops and pedals and made these very strange sounds as he did so. The organist looked inside the organ and saw nothing. Then, suddenly, he saw 2 big green eyes staring at him. It's a cat in there, he said to himself. Poor Blackie was very much frightened. This was altogether too much. He liked adventures and he liked to explore but this was going too far. Yes, that is a cat, said the organist to himself, and Blackie's green eyes shone back at him when he said this. Come, pussy. Come, nice pussy, said the organist in a whisper. Poor Blackie was so frightened he did not know what to do. Still the organist kept on coaxing and begging Blackie to come out. And after a while, Blackie felt less frightened and the soft whisper of the organist sounded very kind and Blackie came out from inside of the church organ. Oh, how happy he was when he was out and the organist got a little boy to lift him quietly and take him out of the church. And what joy it was for Blackie to be back home again, to rest and have a nice sleep after his adventure, which had turned out to be such a mistake. I saw a little boy today, said Daddy, named Robert who has a collection of cocoons. He keeps them on little twigs in a great big box punched full of holes. Then he waits to see the butterflies come out. After they have come out he never kills them or tries to keep them, for he thinks that is dreadfully cruel. He knows well that they love to see the sun and be out in the fresh air among the flowers, and he wouldn't deprive them of that pleasure for anything. Illustration. The butterfly thought, well, this may be my first party, but it certainly won't be my last. Page 95 But one day about a week ago out from a cocoon came the most beautiful pale blue butterfly Robert had ever seen. He at once took it out of the box, and off it flew into the warm sun's rays and lighted upon a small bush which was covered with plum blossoms, and the butterfly acted as if it thought, well, this may be my first party, but it certainly won't be my last. I'd like to know, said Fairy Ebab, of a magnificent tree which was one mass of huge blossoms, why you are called the horse-chestnut tree. You aren't eaten by horses, are you? You don't look like a horse. The horse-chestnut gave a funny low, whispering laugh. I will explain, said the horse-chestnut. You see, there are some creatures who have engagements all the time. They have to meet a friend at such and such a time, or they have to be back for dinner at such a time, or they must be in bed at such another time. Now, the trees are different. We haven't any engagements like that. We, trees, don't have to go anywhere at all. In fact, we can't go anywhere. We're perfectly satisfied, too. You've never heard of a tree pulling itself up by the roots and crying out in a hoarse, leafy way, dear me, I do want to go to a birthday party. In the first place of all, I am called a horse-chestnut tree because I have marks between my leaves and twigs which look like horseshoes with nails in them. That is the answer to the first question. And the answer to the second question is this. No, I am not eaten by horses. My nuts are much too bitter. Children like to play with them, for they're big and handsome, but they're not good to eat. There are your two questions answered. A little bird had lost her mate, said Daddy, and was very sad. A sudden storm had come up when she was out, but when the storm blew over she found her way back to the dear mate who was looking for her. Trill, trill, her little mate cried, and trembled with joy. My little mate, my loving little mate, she said in her bird language as she gave him a kiss with her little beak. And then such a song. Such a song as has seldom been heard before was sung by that happy bird to his little loving mate. Two children were walking, said Daddy. One of them stopped to pick some dandelions. I love these yellow flowers, said the little girl. No one scolds when you pick them. I've never owned a garden, but I always get these flowers every spring, and, oh, how I love them. Dear, soft, yellow posies, she said. This was many years ago, but from that day the dandelion's family have always come up in the spring. A butterfly lays an egg on a leaf, said Daddy. In a little while the egg becomes a caterpillar. And what do you suppose the caterpillar has for its very first meal? Both the children shook their heads. It eats some of the shell from which it came. It's a little like moving out of a house and before leaving it entirely, eating it up. Then the caterpillar becomes a chrysalis and soon a butterfly. It's a happy day for the caterpillar when it becomes a beautiful butterfly. No longer will people call it a horrid caterpillar. They will say, look at the beautiful butterfly. And as the butterfly sips from the little flowers and enters right into the hearts of many of them, it whispers, I've been a long time coming to you, flower, but the hard crawling journey had a wonderful ending. And though the flower does not altogether understand, it partly does, for it whispers, eat all of my honey and sip my sweetness, for you are my beautiful butterfly visitor. I heard something far from pleasant about you, little Tack, said the big nail. There were many other tacks in the box, but there were also many nails. They were all together in one big white box, and whichever size was wanted could be picked from the lot. But the nail which was the biggest of all, or about the biggest, was talking to the tack which was about the smallest of all the tacks in this big box. Well, I suppose you want me to ask you what it is, said the tack, moving a little in the box. You needn't ask me if you don't want to, said the nail haughtily. But of course I want to. That is only natural, said the tack. I thought you would want to, said the nail, in a hard, metallic voice. Now a metallic voice is a voice which sounds as hard and cold as any metal could be. Of course that was the natural sort of voice for a nail to have. Still it was not a very cheerful voice to hear. The master said that he had kept forgetting things all day long. And then he said that he had a head like a tack. Well, what of it? Asked the tack. Is that all? That's all, little tack, said the nail. Isn't that enough? I don't think that was so dreadful, said the tack. Perhaps you don't understand, said the nail. Perhaps not, the tack agreed. I'd better make sure you understand, and so I will tell you. The master meant that his head was so small and stupid that he couldn't remember anything, and when he said that his family told him he mustn't talk so about himself. There, little Tack, you see you have a little stupid head. No head at all, and because it's such a poor head they've made that sad saying about it. There was never such a thing said of a nail. Maybe not, said the Tack angrily, but I can hang just as many pictures as you can. Maybe you are used for big pictures but I am used for small ones, nice little favorites, photographs and so forth. I'm just as useful in my way. Just as useful, the Tack repeated. But what is more, the Tack continued, I have very little use for you in saying such a thing. You are supposed to be a friend of mine. A nail is a sort of relation of a Tack. I don't blame the people for saying such things. In their opinion my head is very small, and quite rightly too, and I have not the things they call brains, neither have you. So I don't blame them in the least. But I blame you, Nail, for coming and telling me something to make me unhappy. It's not doing me any good. I can't change my head. You're just like a creature who wants to be praised because you didn't say the mean thing yourself. But you did worse than that, you repeated it. Bah, the Tack moved away disgusted, and the Nail moved far to one side of the box, feeling much ashamed.